Over about a 6-week period, we talk some more about their troubles. I might do another session of polarity therapy on them, and they continue to practice self-hypnosis. I also give them body awareness exercises. Sometimes I teach them yoga exercises, do biofeedback, or use other physical manipulation or instructional techniques. I sometimes use cerebral electrostimulation, or sleep machine treatments, in which a person uses stethoscope-style electrodes powered by 9-volt batteries to induce a low current to the brain to bring about more restful sleep. I don't particularly care why things work. If something works most of the time with people, I use it. Half of the things I do may seem to be pure hocus pocus, but they often work. Some years ago, I saw a young man of 23 whose bowels moved only once every 3 days. He had terrible hemorrhoids and couldn't ejaculate when he had sex. He could ejaculate sometimes when he masturbated, but that was painful. There was a tightness throughout the lower half of his body. I sent him to a proctologist to find out what to do for his hemorrhoids. The proctologist told him he should have them operated on, and he would have to go into the hospital for operation because his case was too severe to be treated on an in-and-out basis. He agreed to go into the hospital, but he put it off as he had done before. I was working with him in therapy and did what I described above: polarity therapy, hypnosis, self-hypnosis, and some extra Gestalt therapy work on anger. By the 4th 1-hour-long sleep machine and deep relaxation treatment, he ejaculated during sexual intercourse with his girlfriend. Although he had experienced intercourse many times, this was the first time in his life he had ever had an orgasm during intercourse. He started having bowel movements every day without any trouble. The hemorrhoids went away except for the sacs. He went back to the doctor, who now said he didn't have to have an operation, could have the sacs cut off if he wanted. That was 11 years ago, and the man still ejaculates without pain, and although he does occasionally have problems with hemorrhoids, they are nothing like they were before. Along with these physical treatments, he had some honest conversations with his girlfriend. He reestablished contact with his mother. He revealed some of his fear and anger. These things, these reversals of his earlier tight-assed control of his feelings and secrets, allowed him to keep the temporary benefits of polarity therapy, sleep machine treatments, bioenergetics, biofeedback, and self-hypnosis. I have assisted people to cure themselves of asthma, lower back pain, skin rashes, insomnia, obesity, alcohol, nicotine and drug addictions, and other bodily ailments. I have also failed to help a few. But generally, I can turn people on to the power of taking charge of their own experience in their own bodies to heal themselves of bodily ills. We eventually find something that works. It also turns out that the same thing that works to straighten out relationships When we become willing to take full responsibility for taking care of our own selves in the world, our relationships start working better, as do our bodies. Most of us, unfortunately, want to make someone else take care of us instead. We can all still remember, consciously or not, how nice it was when we were small enough that someone else had to do the worrying and the work. Although it is a complete waste of time to work your ass off trying to rearrange the world into that previous model that worked a long time ago, most of us never get that message. So the first phase of therapy is body therapy, and beginning instruction in self-maintenance through noticing and physical discipline. The physical techniques like yoga, polarity therapy, and self-hypnosis have only temporary effects, but people can keep the benefits of these crisis-oriented therapeutic techniques if they take over the task of taking care of themselves physically on a regular basis and learn to rest and relax and nurture themselves. Next, the person enters into an agreement with me to work out and get in good physical shape, and I assist them with support for a kind of spring training. After those beginning weeks, we make some agreements about exercise, nutrition, drugs and alcohol, and other matters of physical health, and we begin psychotherapy the way other people think of it. The hardest part of what we do is the categorical part. No, the hardest part of what we do is the characterological part. The therapy to change the way the person runs him or herself. The ways we all learn to get satisfaction that worked at 8 years of age become increasingly appropriate as we get older. But the unconscious mind doesn't get the message. Insights gained in childhood become principles of control for living the right life as an adult. But people have to get over childhood in order to grow up. Growing up is not just a continual accumulation of new learning. You have to ditch some of what you learned before. One particularly effective way to do this is to tell the truth about all your attempts to manipulate others to get what you want. Until you can laugh about this, you aren't free from being manipulated by your own manipulations. It is only through telling the truth about all these hidden agendas for getting what you want that the real work of growing begins. So at this third phase of therapy, some of the work is ferreting out current manipulations or attempts at manipulation and various forms of emotional blackmail learned earlier in life, and confessing them to the historical and the current victims. Since pictures of how one is supposed to be taken care of and models for getting what one wants by conning others become entrenched in the mind as how things should be, much of this work involves disappointment, anger, and sadness. Coaching during this phase of therapy involves everything I've written about in this book so far. Therapy consists primarily of teaching people how to recontact the experience that exists below their moralism, or below ideas about how life is and how it should be. The experiencer, normally blocked by moralistic resolve, will then gradually come to the foreground, and the moralism, while remaining intact, will recede to the background. One's life changes, of course, after such transformation, but the point is not the change. The circumstantial changes are almost incidental. The point of the shift of figure and ground. The point is the shift of figure and ground. The figure in the foreground, the mind-bound, harried, shouldistic warrior, moves to the background, still alive and well and whole, but no longer leading. And the heretofore background figure, the quiet animal who walks and laughs, taking what's so in nature, comes to the foreground, even in the city and even at work. Such a shift is a matter of grace and strikes only those in good-feeling shape who are ready to receive it. Being a good therapist is knowing this and helping the odds along. People can be turned on to their own power and goodness enough that they don't need tightly held principles to hold themselves together anymore. It is here that visions of a more heroic life arise. They arise from the same depths that the self-crippling principles of control came from. They arise this time, however, at the behest of a person who feels like creating and affirming his or her life, rather than a person who feels sick and bad and powerless. It is precisely at this point, the most visceral and basic point of physical experience, that the power of personal responsibility for well-being emerges. People discover how to take care of themselves when they come back in contact with their experience. No one has time to discover anything when they are constantly being swamped by orders from central casting. These orders, given in a shrill internal tone of voice, were built in with feelings of shame at 8 years of age or earlier. When we are not unthinkingly obeying that voice, we handle our daily, physical, basic, and ongoing existence with energy left over and worry decreased, and we are able to get in touch with our power as creators. Psychological well-being comes out of the rediscovery that you are the creator. Most of our education is to prevent such a thing from happening. A lot of what I'm saying is familiar to a lot of people, with the possible exception of most practicing psychologists and psychiatrists. Talking only psychotherapy by itself is an anachronism. The traditional Freudian psychoanalytical approach has already bitten the dust except as a post hoc creative mythology for those already cured, or not interested in being cured of anxiety or depression. On the way in are people who take care of themselves, now and then using a doctor or therapist who knows something about stress and understands transformation. People are learning to give up looking for an authority to take care of their hurt and make it all better, and instead are looking for a fellow human with modern technology at hand and a vision of a better way to live. These are my kind of people. People like this are creators who use me creatively, and when they are like this, they don't need me anymore. They use me to their best advantage. What I think we learn together over and over is something about giving up. We give up wishing. We abandon all hope. Life becomes a game for the sake of the game alone. The act of wishing is itself transformed. Nietzsche said, "A man's maturity consists in having found again the seriousness one had as a child at play." That serious play, that paying attention first and then thinking directed by attention, that utter dedication to being with whatever you are doing, is a way of being we have known since the light first came on in the womb. We keep trying to get a grasp on this ungraspable being by remembering what it did and predicting what it will do. That doesn't work. What fools us into being neurotic is the desire to hold on to some experiences and to avoid others. Experience changes constantly, so we move to fantasies and worries which also change, but at a slower rate. This gives us a sense of control. Most of us will trade anything we have for a good false sense of control. If we can surrender the false sense of control provided by protective beliefs and fantasies of who we are and how we should be, we can learn to use the mind machine we originally developed as a defense against the nuns and teachers and other cops. Now, centered in our experience, we can use our minds as instruments for creating. When a person learns to use his or her own mind for creating, rather than being used by that mind, the job of psychotherapy is over. Part 4, Things I've Learned from the War Between Being and Mind. Chapter 10, About Change. Climate is what we expect. Weather is what we get. Robert A. Heinlein. This chapter describes where power comes from. Power resides in persons, not in techniques. In John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, Tom Joad and his brother Al, in the middle of their trek from Oklahoma to California with the whole family and all their worldly goods, had to go to a junkyard to get a part needed to overhaul the engine on their car. They had borrowed a truck from some people in the same shape they were. The truck drove to the service station belt, and there on the right-hand side of the road was a wrecking yard. An acre lot surrounded by a high barbed wire fence, a corrugated iron shed in front with used tires piled up by the doors and price marked. Behind the shed, there was a little shack built of scrap lumber, and pieces of tin. The windows were windshields built into the walls. In the greasy lot, the wrecks lay, cars with twisted, stove-in noses, wounded cars lying on their sides with the wheels gone, engines rusting on the ground and against the shed, a great pile of junk, fenders and truck sides, wheels and axles. Over the whole lot, a spirit of decay, of mold and rust, twisted iron, half-gutted engines, a mass of derelicts. Al drove the truck up on the oily ground in front of the shed. Tom got out and looked into the dark doorway. "Don't see nobody," he said, and he called, "Anybody here? Jesus, I hope they got a 25 Dodge." Behind the shed, a door banged. A specter of a man came through the dark shed. Thin, dirty, oily skin tight against stringy muscles. One eye was gone, and the raw, uncovered socket squirmed with eye muscles when his good eye moved. His jeans and shirt were thick and shiny with old grease, and his hands cracked and lined and cut. His heavy, pouting underlip hung out sullenly. Tom asked, "You the boss?" The one eye glared. "I work for the boss," he said sullenly. "What you want?" "Got a wreck 25 Dodge? We need a Conrad." "I don't know. If the boss was here, he would tell you. But he ain't here. He's went home." "Can we look and see?" The man wiped his nose into the palm of his hand and wiped his hand on his trousers. "You from hereabouts?" "Come from east. Going west." "Look around, then. Burn the goddamn place down for all I care." "Looks like you don't love your boss none." The man shambled close, his one eye flaring. "I hate him," he said softly. "I hate the son of a bitch. Gone home now. Gone home to his house." The words fell stumbling out. "He got away. He got away a picking a fella and tearing a fella. He is son of a bitch. I got a girl 19, Purdy. Says to me, 'How'd you like to marry her?' Says that right to me. And tonight he says, 'There's a dance. How'd you like to go?' He says it to me." Tears formed in his eye and dripped from the corner of his red eye socket. "Someday, by God, someday, I'm going to have a pipe wrench in my pocket. And when he says them things and looks at my eye, and I'm going to just take his head right down off his neck with that wrench, a little piece at a time." He panted with his fury. A little piece at a time, right down off in his neck. The sun disappeared behind the mountains. Al looked into the lot at the wrecked cars. "Over there, look, Tom. That there looks like a 25 or 26. Tom turned to the one-eyed man. "Mind if we look?" "Hell no. Take the goddamn thing you want." "Take any goddamn thing you want," the one-eyed man said. "I'll get you a box of tools." He shuffled off among the rusty cars, and in a moment he came back with a tin box of tools. Tom dug out a socket wrench and handed it to Al. "You take her off. Don't lose no shims, and don't let no bolts get away, and keep track of the counterpins. Hurry up. Light's getting dim." Al crawled under the car. "We ought to get us a set of socket wrenches," he called. "Can't get in no place with a monkey wrench." "Yell out if you want a hand," Tom said. The one-eyed man stood helplessly by. "I'll help you if you want," he said. "Know what that son of a bitch done? He come by and he got on white pants, and he says, 'Come on, let's go out to my yacht. By God, I'll wang him someday.' He breathed heavily. 'I ain't been out with a woman since I lost my eye,' and he says stuff like that." And big tears cut channels in the dirt beside his nose. Tom said impatiently, "Why didn't you roll on? Got no guards to keep you here." "Yeah, that's easy to say. Ain't so easy to get a job, not for a one-eyed man." Tom turned on him. "Now look here, fella. You got that eye wide open, and you're dirty, you stink, you're just asking for it. You like it. Lets you feel sorry for yourself. Of course you can't get no woman with an empty eye flapping around. Put something over it and wash your face. You ain't hitting nobody with no pipe wrench." "I tell you, a one-eyed fella got a hard row," the man said. "Can't see stuff the way other fellas can. Can't see how far off a thing is. Everything's just flat." Tom said, "You're full of crap. Why, I knowed a one-legged whore one time. Think she was taking 2 bits in an alley? No, by God, she's getting $50 extra. She says, 'How many one-legged women you slept with?' 'None,' she says. 'Okay,' she says, 'you got something pretty special here, and it ain't going to cost you $50 entry.' And by God, she was getting them too, and the fellers coming out thinking they're pretty lucky. She says she's good luck, and I know a humpback in a place I was, make his whole living letting folks rub his hump for luck. Jesus Christ, and all you got is one eye gone." The man said stumblingly, "Well, Jesus, you see somebody edge away from you and it gets into you. Cover it up then, goddammit. You're sticking it out like a crow's ass. You like to feel sorry for yourself. There ain't nothing the matter with you. Buy yourself some white pants. You getting drunk and crying in bed, I bet. Need any help, Al?" The one-eyed man said softly, "Think somebody'd like me?" "Why, sure," said Tom. Tell 'em your doings growed since you lost your... What? Oh. Why, sure, said Tom. Tell them your dong's grown since you lost your eye. Oh my gosh. Where at you fellas going? California. Whole family. Gonna get work out there. Well, you think a fella like me could get work? Black patch on my eye? Why not? You ain't no cripple. Well, could I catch a ride with you fellas? Christ, no. We're so goddamn full now we can't move. You get out there some other way. Fix up one of these here wrecks and go out by yourself. Maybe I will, by God, said the one-eyed man. What Tom said to the one-eyed man was what I call a great therapeutic intervention. But even radical interventions by the best of therapists are powerless unless there is a commitment by a whole and undivided being to change. All of the information in the world is of no value, and all research is irrelevant until placed in the context of the power of intention. We all display a kind of inconsistency among our beliefs, our wishes, and our actions in our own lives, although it may be easier to recognize in the lives of others. We have all listened to an argument play itself out between two or more voices within our own minds, one preaching about what we should do, and the other helplessly apologizing and explaining about how we would if we could, but we can't. We all share an awareness, if we are honest, that on some fundamental level, the apparent struggle among our beliefs, actions, and desires is a false one. More often than not, the struggle has emerged after a choice has already been made, though perhaps unconsciously. The struggle manifests itself mostly as effort, trying to decide, trying to be good, trying to keep our word. The false struggle is invented by our minds as a distraction, to draw fire, to draw the fire of our attention and keep us from seeing that we have already chosen. Tom and Al got into the truck. It was deep dark. Al started the motor and turned on the lights. "So long," called Tom. "See you maybe in California." They turned across the highway and started back. The one-eyed man watched them go, and then he went through the iron shed to his shack behind. It was dark inside. He felt his way to the mattress on the floor, and he stretched out and cried in his bed, and the cars whizzing by on the highway only strengthened the walls of his loneliness. When people view themselves as conglomerations of opposing forces, each force straining in a different direction with each particular component striving to wrest control from the others and dominate the future, the result is a sense of helplessness. Impotent fury is weakness. Effort is the opposite of power. That aspect of our experience that longs for happiness and righteousness never quite succeeds in gaining control over the other forces, which we view as alien and unwanted baggage. The unfortunate accidents of our character that somehow overpower our inner longings and cover up our true selves. We imagine that stronger or luckier people have succeeded in their battle for self-control, and that this is the source of their power. This belief that others have succeeded where we have failed becomes just another element in our battle against ourselves, our longing to be that which we are not. The conditions we produce in our lives, the actions we repeat against our will, the circumstances that make us suffer, somehow we have perpetuated them, despite our professed beliefs and our efforts to change. The source of our power to produce the results we want does not lie in our beliefs, our hopes, or our time-consuming struggle to change. The person who says he wants to lose weight, but says he just can't give up midnight snacks, may believe he is in a struggle between being good and giving in to his cravings. But in fact, he has already chosen to keep snacking. The struggle that he describes serves to hide this fact. By focusing our attention on our apparent struggle to change, the reasons and explanations and excuses that we generate instead of results, we engage in a conspiracy to pretend that we are each an accidental grouping of disharmonious parts working against each other. Why parts? When you say, I want to look for a new job, but I can't seem to get started, who is it that wants to, and who is it that can't? It is as though there were two of you, and one, the one who can't, had more power than the other. You pretend that the real you is the one that wants to. We pretend that we are not whole. The I who wants to get up early every morning and exercise, for instance, seems to be a different individual from the I who decides to sleep in. The I who longs for a successful, supportive marriage is not the I who backs down from making a commitment whenever a relationship gets too serious. Instead of examining more closely the actual way in which we operate, which consists of trying to get what we want and then sabotaging our own efforts, we assume our error is in not trying hard enough, and redouble both our efforts and our resistance. We always manage to stay one step ahead of ourselves, so that we never quite reach our goals. By focusing on the struggle instead of on the results, we avoid having to admit that the one who wants to change and the one who resists change are one and the same, that we are whole, and that we really do get what we want, which is struggle rather than results. But until I can experience my own resistance as me, just as I experience my desire to change as me, I am doomed to be locked in the hopeless struggle for control. Tom was absolutely right about the one-eyed man. You just ask him for it. You like it. Lets you feel sorry for yourself. Instead of amalgamations of parts having contradictory and uncontrollable purposes, suppose we consider ourselves to be already what we long to be, functional, integrated wholes who produce the results we choose, effortlessly, with our entire beings. Suppose we all already are that. All the apparent contradictions and dichotomies, the fat person struggling to be thin, the sinner trying to be good, the workaholic longing for time with his family, are actually smokescreens, false struggles enacted by our own minds to hide from others or ourselves our true intent. Our true intent is to do just what we do. As complete, integrated human beings, we direct our lives with purpose, with effortless control, and with unchecked power. This is scary. The contradictions between our principles and our behavior are only superficial, only invented for the sake of appearance and to avoid acknowledging our terrifying power to make things happen. Our unwillingness to explore the possibility that what we have is what we want, that our lives function, that we are comfortable and fear change in most areas of our lives, prevents us from producing change in other areas. Our energy is totally invested in maintaining our lives the way they are, and the phony struggle for change only conceals the ways in which the status quo serves us. Our apparent battle for change is a tempest in a teapot. As long as I identify myself only as that desire to change, and not also as a presently more powerful desire to remain the same, I will remain stuck. In a sense, I can change, finally, only by giving up trying to change. In order for things to get better, they must first get worse. In order to get out of debt, we have to acknowledge how it serves us to be in debt. In order to lose weight, we have to be in touch with and confront how we also want to stay fat. We have to stop paying attention to our struggle and turn our awareness to the ways in which these circumstances we claim we want to change serve us. The payoffs. Only after experiencing ourselves the way we are, dropping our phony struggle to change, and telling the truth about all of it, can we create the lives we have been saying we want. This examination of our subconscious desire to avoid change and of what lies beneath the phony struggle can get us unstuck. It also leads to a deeper place, a scarier place, than that of mere struggle to change. Struggling to change is what you do to hide from something worse. Struggling to change is a way to avoid facing the abyss, and if the abyss could be avoided, it would be a good idea.